from an ethnic minority perspective, in terms of because I'm based in Hull.
I was going to say, he's not as ethnic as Birmingham and London.
No, it's not. So, in our clinic, we have very, 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 very small numbers of ethnic minorities, who attend the clinic. And we still don't know the reason for that, apart from just the population, because even if you look at it in terms of the population dynamics, the number we see is still even far below the number of ethnic minority population within the region.
100%.
So there might be risk of problems of access. Okay, and one of the things, irrespective of ethnicity, many long COVID patients complain about is they want to be believed.
Share. Affinity Xtra. Be extra.
Yeah, guys, this is your boy here, Roger Moore here on Affinity Xtra, celebrating gospel music of black origin. We're here with the Tough Talk. This is Roger Moore on the Edge special in conjunction or partnership with the NHS. But that does not mean I don't ask the questions that are edgy, guys. I will be asking the questions that are edgy, but I'm absolutely privileged to be talking to another NHS professional who is black. Now, this is the world record for me, guys. I've been just today's recordings alone, I've seen 2 black professionals from the NHS. I've never seen this in my entire life, guys. I'm like really, really shocked. You know what I'm saying? People just laughing at me, but it's growing up, and I think it's so great. We're going to be hearing from somebody from the NHS, but at the same time, guys, it's we're able to have a conversation which they understand. What we're thinking and how we feel. And that's why we're having this conversation, and I appreciate the NHS for helping us set this up. And it's going to be some good. It's going to be going through Black History Month, which we're celebrating all that, all what's good with us. But also, we're also going to have discussions of what affects us and what really affects this decimated our community. We want to run away from COVID, but COVID hasn't run away. We are pretending like COVID left that day. You know what I mean? I'm afraid COVID never operate like that. No. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't operate. But I'm here today alongside Abayomi, who's going to explain to you who he is and what he does.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Abayomi Salawu. I'm a consultant in rehabilitation medicine, and I'm based at Castle Hill Hospital in Hull. Rehabilitation medicine focuses on trying to get people back to living their life as full as possible after a period of illness, injury, or any infirmity, to try and get people back to what they were as much as possible, within limits, of course, within limits of whatever disease they've had, and within limits of what facilities and equipment and personnel were able to provide to help people get back to what they were before. So that's my area of specialty.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. And so you got a curveball 2 years ago when COVID hit, and obviously everything was going crazy, and you had a new chapter, new studies, new updates every single week coming through. Did you ever envision, inverted commas, flu or flu on steroids or a virus like this could cause a lot more damage? You can imagine you're sitting down 2 years ago. Did you think that this disease could do this by watching the effects in other countries and seeing it come to this country? Did it shock you? Is this something that you guys secretly thought, what, we're going to have one day, we're going to have this day?
Yeah, well, I think it's a once in a life or in a generation kind of event.
That's good. Yeah.
You read about it, you've heard about it, but you don't think it's going to happen in your own lifetime. And I said that because as someone who grew up in Africa, we've witnessed growing up seeing different epidemics, not pandemics, in there. So you've had episodes of experiencing situations where there are infections and where things have happened like that. But from a Western perspective, coming and working in the United Kingdom, you think, healthcare is fantastic. Everything, hygiene, because a lot of things we used to attribute to hygiene issues in those days. You think that's a lot better here, and things like this wouldn't happen. You caught everybody by surprise, and you can see the response across the whole world. Nobody was expecting it. Later, we were hearing that, some security and all the high-powered stuff have predicted something, but I don't think anybody expected it was going to happen. That's the honest truth. And I think it manifested in the preparations or the preparedness of all the different organizations. We were caught unawares. It was apparent to everybody.
Yeah. No, 100%, bro. It's one of the ones where it was like you're in a movie and you really live in the movie, and we're here now 2 years afterwards with a traumatized communities, traumatized people. We're kind of stuck now. Going a bit more down to, what your department now has been handling when it comes to COVID. When you're talking about rehab, I always think of soldiers coming back from, when I think of people who face amputations because of diabetes, things like that, and that's just my, I wouldn't say silly assumption based upon my knowledge. Now, when you've got a rehab in terms of a very strong viral infection, how has this played with your team and your crew, your specialist team that's up there in terms of dealing with something where you've got no book, but people are complaining about something which nobody knew what was going to happen. You just get COVID, spend a couple of weeks off, and then you carry on, and we just finding as we go along that people are still suffering. Now, how did that get onto your table? Is it something where somebody accidentally text you down London, like, I got 5 people that still got lung problems and do have a look in your area? How did it work?
Yep. I suppose the other thing I probably should add to my last comment is that even though it caught us unaware or unprepared, the response, I have to say, was remarkable. The way things moved at speed and trying to get experts in different fields. Yeah. And I think it's something that's really amazing to have been involved in. I have to say that, even as a clinician, the way you mentioned some earlier on about the amount of information and things we were consuming. On the average, I probably would say in the early few weeks, I probably was reading on the average 20 different articles almost per day, everybody trying to understand it. And you read all much and you go, I'm still not anywhere wiser what's going on in it. But the response, once everybody knew it was here, who can manage this, who can manage that one in there. Wow. Now, my background as a rehab medicine specialist, one of the things we do, we look after people post-stroke, like you said, post-head injury, conditions where you actually have no curative treatment. So most of the time, so if you've had a head injury, you've had a head injury. If you've had a stroke, you've had a stroke. The ongoing treatment is to prevent you from having another stroke. It doesn't stop the one you've already had. You still need to recover from the one you've had. Yeah, correct. And that's the kind of thing we deal with. So we're used to dealing with all people having residual symptoms that doesn't fit into any organ system, and the body doesn't follow any particular disease pattern. Because if you remember, when I was trying to define what my specialty or what we do is to try and get people back to living and living meaningfully. I always emphasize that. Wow. Rehab is not just, I've given somebody a wheelchair or I've given somebody crutches to walk down the road. You want them to get back to what they were doing before. So if they were a grandfather, guilty, and they do grandfather things.
So we see the films. Rehab is, they got them poles, and imagine your office there. You got them poles where you like this, and listen, respect for the people. You do that, and I'm sorry, I'm one of them guys that think that it's just that, but it's obviously a lot more than that.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot more, and also the way our body responds to things. Okay, I always say, think of everything as an insult to the body. The human body is amazing in the sense that it's got its own natural defenses. It's got loads of different natural defenses. Our biggest defense is our skin. We don't think of it that way. Okay, it's the one that separates your internal environment from the external environment, and it's our largest organ. We don't think of it that way. Okay. True. Yeah. So loads of different things that naturally helps us or protects us. So anything that happens to the body, it's an insult, whether it's trauma, whether it's an infection, whether it's anything. And the body will respond the way it knows how to do. The first thing is to try and protect you. Okay?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at times, when it activates its defense mechanism, they can go beyond the level of the insult.
Wow.
And it can sometimes cause its own problems. And some of this is what we saw with a lot of people in terms of the reaction to the COVID, or in terms of, so the body kind of, it did what it's normally meant to do, which is protect the person. And some of the ways I sometimes explain to people when we're treating conditions and treating illness, let's say you have an infection, a bacterial infection, and as a doctor, we give you antibiotics, okay? The antibiotics is to kill the bug that's causing you problem. The antibiotics is not what's healing your body. Your body heals itself.
Right, yeah.
If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So your body is the one doing the recovery. The antibiotics is to kill the bug so that it doesn't cause more insult to the body.
Yeah.
And your body ultimately then recovers and goes. And that's the same thing will happen with COVID. It's a viral infection. We don't have, it's like a common cold, and we feel like, oh, fine. It's no, we all know it's more than a common cold now. But your body treats it, oh, this foreign agent has come, I need to knock it out again.
Wow.
And in trying to knock it out, it generates its own response. And in different people, it might go in different ways. And in some people, it's unable to generate that defense mechanism and allows the virus to kind of run amok. And the body needs a lot of reserve to get the person back up. So some of the energy, how would I put it now, cost or expenditure in trying to get rid of or get the person back, it takes a toll.
So it's not a case where we were saying, okay, then 3 to 5 day working days and you're back on your feet. It's literally about the, as much as it's 3 to 5 working days for on average, but there are cases where 10% of cases where you could have lingering symptoms, and it could be a classic, speak to your doctor if you're not doing this and not doing that. But the thing is, for me, what's quite interesting with long COVID, because it did come out within 6 months of COVID being around, people started seeing certain symptoms that went around. I know some people do suffer still to this now with COVID. They do how you utilize inhalers and different things like that to cope with long pop respiratory not as it was before COVID. What percentage is it? Is it higher than what people think? Because I would think it's just 1 or 2. Is it quite a high percentage of long COVID?
I wouldn't put it as a terms of high percentage. The data from the ONS, which is the Office of National Statistics, I think the one they did from July, which is self-reported symptoms, people reporting symptoms suggested. They estimated about 2 million people were having symptoms that is in keeping with either what we'll say ongoing symptomatic COVID or post-COVID. And the distinction between the two is, if we usually think within 4 weeks, most people will recover. If the person continues to have symptoms after 4 weeks, we call that ongoing COVID symptoms. And then after 12 weeks, if they're still having symptoms, you say that's post-COVID syndrome. Now, the interesting thing is, the symptom doesn't have to be there all the time. For some people, it fluctuates. For some people, fatigue is one of the biggest things, but there are over 200 symptoms that have been reported in terms of people talking about long COVID. Loads of different symptoms. But the
wow, that's crazy, man. I'm like going, sorry, sometimes I can get ignorant because I never really caught COVID, and I speak to people where they got suffer. But when you're just thinking, okay, it's just a bit of a breath thing, or it's affected you mentally, but it's not a mental thing, it's actually a physical.
Right, so it is physical, but one of the things I always say is, we cannot separate our mental being as human beings from our physical. Ooh. It's all part and parcel.
Okay, I like
your
that.
human body is whole.
I like that. Yeah.
Your human body is whole. For purpose, when I went to medical school, they taught me in systems. But the body doesn't. The body works everything as a whole. It's the whole body.
Wow.
It's easier for me to learn and understand looking at it from a system. And if there's one thing we've learned from long COVID, is actually to look at the whole holistic perspective of the human body and response, recovery from illness. This is multi-systemic. It's pretty much any system in the body could be affected. And for someone like me in my kind of field, it's kind of almost finally people are seeing what we've been talking about in there. The human body works as a whole. So when people try to say, oh, it's only physical, it's only mental, I say, no. You think about it. Earlier on, we were talking about football teams, okay?
Yeah.
Do you know that one of the biggest factors returning from injury for an athlete is not just the physical injury, it's the mental bit. That affects performance, it affects confidence. Then the next time they're about to make a tackle, they think of the injury, they pull out of that tackle.
Of course.
Suddenly their game changes.
Yeah.
And these are all the things. So the human body, everything works together.
I like that. Oh, that's wise, man.
So
I like that.
There is no way one is going to have something that has a physical impact. And we're talking of symptoms that impact on usual day-to-day activities. Going up a flight of stairs for some people to get breathless. It will affect somebody. You cannot separate and say, unless you're the most hardy of human beings, to say, oh, normally I can climb around, I can run up a flight of stairs. Now I walk up a flight of stairs and I have to stop halfway before I go there. After some time, it will weigh on the mind.
You know what's amazing? Amazing what you said. Something really hit me. You know what I mean? And guys, I'm like, hopefully I'll be qualified doctor by the time I finish all these podcasts because I'm learning so much information. You know, absolutely crazy. I love information. But something you said to me that you said over 200. That, you know, in terms of there is no fixed long COVID kind of like angle because it can affect your kidneys. It can affect your heart. It can affect you in any sort of way. That's the damage that it can leave on your body because what it's done for your body to recover from the disease and maybe the treatments that you had and different things like that. Ultimately, we can't just look at it from a perspective of someone who hasn't been affected by long COVID. And this is talking to actually work bosses out there that are seeing people come back from COVID and they're not functioning how they need to be functioning. There's all these things that we have to take into consideration. If there's 2 million people that could be potentially suffering with long COVID, who has been affected, hopefully some have recovered fully from it, You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot of times what you find within minority communities that are not well off, we hide away from the doctors, we don't get in contact with rehab. We don't even tell them that we got COVID, so we're there coughing and splurting on the floor because we don't want to get vaccinated. And then you go from vaccinated to long cold and sweating out and drinking ginger tea and ginger wine and burning down the throat to get this disease. You finally get kind of over it, but you still are suffering. Still suffering, you're struggling to do your natural parts in your family, you're suffering in a home alone. As we talked about a mental, you know, it does affect you mentally because you're not doing what you do and you feel alone and stuck in the house. People think you're weird because you don't want to go out because you're too scared to push your body anymore because you feel the difference.
Yeah.
This is big, you know. It's big.
Yeah, but not all the 2 million people who reported those symptoms are, if you kind of put them into quarters. So I'll say about 1/4 of that, between 400 and 500,000, are within those that are still experiencing symptoms within 4 weeks and 12 weeks. So after 12 weeks, many of those might not have any more symptoms.
That's good. Yes, okay? Good. Yeah, good.
Then you have what I'll probably say half of those who have symptoms, but they're back doing the normal thing.
Yeah.
Okay? They're getting on with their life. They know it's there. They can still get it, but then you get the last quarter who are those, I would say, significantly affected to the extent it's impacting on day-to-day life. So those are the kind of rough from the data from the ONS. That's the way it's kind of panned out of all the population of people reporting symptoms. From an ethnic minority perspective in terms of, because I'm based in Hull.
I was going to say, he's not as ethnic as Birmingham and London.
No, it's not. So in our clinic, we have very, 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 very small numbers of ethnic minorities, who attend the clinic. And we still don't know the reason for that, apart from just the population. Because even if you look at it in terms of the population dynamics, the number we see is still even far below the number of ethnic minority population within the region. 100%. So there might be risk of problems of access. Okay, and one of the things, irrespective of ethnicity, many long COVID patients complain about is they want to be believed, and people sometimes feel when they imagine I said there are about 200 symptoms. If somebody has 10 of those, you don't want. By the time you're talking to your doctor, you feel, oh, he doesn't believe me anymore now. Even though the doctor might not have said anything. So people feel already that if I complain of too many things, nobody will believe me. And they even say, their family tell them, snap out of it. There's nothing wrong with you. Look the same. Interestingly, one of the reasons why I got dragged off into the long COVID is some of the kind of conditions I used to manage before COVID came along is people with what we call post-concussional syndrome after head injury. Some people have lingering symptoms for a long time after. They look the same. They've never had any operation on their head, nothing. They just had a bang on the head. And these symptoms continue for longer. And it's the same kind of scenario. Many of those used to have brain fog. Oh, they get tired. But if they tell people, nobody believes them because they look the same, they talk the same. I don't know what you're talking about. And it all boils down to what you said. You said functioning. And I like that word, functioning. If I use a kind of crude analogy I use with my patients, I said, if I pinch your arm now, will you feel pain? Oh, of course I'll feel pain. Good. But if I do an X-ray of your arm, what will I see? Said nothing. Does that mean you don't feel pain? Does that mean you're not experiencing the pain because I didn't see anything on the scan? So sometimes the test will be normal.
But it doesn't mean that
it doesn't mean you're not experiencing. So when we explain that to patients, it's crucial.
No, that's big. Now, something that came to my mind as you're explaining there. Now, ethnic communities, especially first generations, are very spiritual. Whether it's Christianity, the second, third generation, they usually get secularized in the pandemic. It was a very struggle in churches in terms of, faith and mixing COVID, and they're going, some churches were like, you got lack of faith for taking the vaccine, it's this and that. There's so much things going on there. Now, what's sad is that people who got COVID, and sometimes their social circles is the ones that could guide them to the right support. And this is really important, people, because I feel that a lot of people feel like they're not comfortable to talk about how they're still suffering with certain symptoms, because having COVID seems to be a lack of faith. You can't mention it because it's just a made-up disease. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we've debunked with Christianity. People can say, "What you are? Oh, you wrong? What?" No, it's a real situation, and people may feel like they're struggling, and there's nobody to talk to. Maybe this is a challenge to everybody within faith circles to still be open to talking to people and checking in on people and going, okay, we saw you come to church. You're not dancing like you used to dance. You're not clapping like you used to clap. You're not as involved as you used to be. You seem quite withdrawn. It's not a case that, it's a mental thing or a lack of faith thing. It could be something a bit more different.
Yeah, I think one of the good things in terms of NHS response to the long COVID, because after they've we've done the COVID, it looks as if a lot more emphasis now needs to go on long COVID in there. And in fairness to them, they've pumped a lot of money into research. And there are, I think, 19 that are going on at the moment on long COVID.
Wow.
I think they spent about almost £50 million, really. Wow. All different, looking in terms of the mechanism, the type of people or what kind of people are getting it, what kind of people are more likely to have long COVID, and are there potential treatments. Okay? But in terms of what we're doing from our clinic and different things in there, we know the intervention is multifactorial and different kind of therapies. So there are things we use physical, there are things you use occupational therapy, and we do have people who deliver psychological therapy.
Wow.
As part of the management, because it's quite crucial. Because a lot of people are reporting high level of anxiety, high level of mood impact. But this interesting to me is one of the areas where faith organizations and faith societies and co do come in. They provide fantastic support for a lot of people. Okay? For a lot of people. And there are things in terms of, well, there is evidence in terms of people with faith and co, their religion, and their helps calm your mood, helps calm a lot of things in there. And what I tell many of my patients, whatever floats your boat and calms you down, okay? As long as it's not what I would call a maladaptive response. And what do we mean by maladaptive response? If somebody is feeling anxious and then you go and pick a bottle of alcohol and say you calm me down, it might calm you down, but it's going to cause you more damage. If you see what I mean, that's a maladaptive response.
For some people that could be weed, you know what I mean?
So
we just say don't calm, you know.
It might calm your nerve. This is one of the things I always say to a lot of people is, what are the consequences? Because then it then doesn't help the situation. You end up dependent on it. So, and the thing about those kind of things is the doses you then need needs to go higher and higher and higher as your body habituates to it. And then it will spiral out of control, which is why we say those things are maladaptive. The key thing is building very good, and resilience comes also from having that supportive network, which is quite, you get it a lot for people within faith communities. If I use myself as an example, when I first came to this country over 20 years ago, the two of us, a friend of mine and I, we were walking in the far north of England, in Carlisle. He settled far quicker than me. Why? He's a Christian. I'm from a different faith, but he goes to church. On the Sunday, he said, every Sunday in church, there's always a fight in church. Who's going to take him home? With your family.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
So those are kind of things we need to kind of do. Those are fantastic things we need to hold on to. Is giving people that support and that resilience. But if you're then going to advise people on whatever they're experiencing, we make sure we seek the information from respectable sources. The NHS has a fantastic website on long COVID called Your COVID Recovery. And it pretty much details everything, any of the symptoms, what people can do to self-manage themselves and stuff in there. So if somebody's saying this, you can advise people, you can say, actually, all this information is out there on a lot of things.
So no, that's fantastic. Because we're gonna get to we want to get to the part of how people can get to the services and support, and we're starting to touch into that now. But the NHS is actually investing into long COVID, and I know there's even young people that I know, but I might have to just thump in the shoulder and say, listen, mate, do have a look into this, because you're suffering alone. Because sometimes I think that, when we see people get long COVID, we just think, they used to smoke, so it's their own fault, or either mashed up the lungs, or they're sickly anyway, But there's people that are probably genuinely healthy, and then they just haven't recovered after this. After COVID, and we have to be wise and stop being assumptions around that. But in terms of you mentioned about the website, which is absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to put the link in the description here, guys. Now, how do I approach my GP? Because then people going, right, I believe I got long COVID. I had COVID 6 months ago, and there's going to be saying my GP does not listen to me. Sometimes there's a button that and I know that they can press when they go into the GP, when the GP goes, seriously, we're not going to go into why he's not listening to you, or you're too scared to go to him because of past experiences with your GP. Let's put that aside and let's get your support now. What can they say when they go into their local GP and said, I need to be referred to the long COVID team?
You just said it. You just said it. Because the clinics, each area across the whole country, The services might vary in the personnel they have within different teams in there, but there is a service that near you or your own area. There will be a service, and they have a link. All the primary care practitioners, some services run as self-referral, where people can refer themselves. Brilliant. For our own service, if I use example of our own, we advise people to go through the GP, and there's a reason for that. Many reasons for that. We've already set up a referral criteria and some tests for the GP to do. So he can,
so he can do. Yeah. Got ya.
So sometimes that's what caused the delay, because the GP says, I've referred you, and patient said, I haven't heard anything. Said no, because we've requested all these tests. We want all these tests to be done before, and all the professionals have a look through all those things in there. And why are we doing those tests? Because the evidence is showing now the people who seems to be at risk of long COVID, there are three main factors we've actually found. That sex, mostly female, age. Okay, the comment is between 35 and 69, roughly. Those are most of the people, and then people with pre-existing health condition. Those are the people that seems to be, after they've had COVID, at a higher risk. Wow. Saying that there are people with nothing before who do end up with COVID. Cool. But I'm going to dwell on that bit of the pre-existing health condition that I mentioned. Some people, or many people, don't even know they got a pre-existing medical condition. If you've never been tested for that, how do you know you're not diabetic? If you see what I'm trying to say. So those tests pick some of those up in some people. And then we know, there is this added to it. So you've got, you've got symptoms of long COVID, but you've also got a treatable condition with it. Which if we treat that one, that might lessen the burden on COVID. So that's why that bit is important.
No, it's real important, because ultimately, when you're dealing with our community and our black community who don't go to see doctors after, just grind out and work, you're suffering with long COVID, and you go, there's nothing wrong with me. But how do they know there's nothing wrong with you without you getting yourself checked out every year when it comes to kidney disease? For word speaking, my wife, she does a podcast about kidney disease from her kidney journey, and she encourages people to check your levels of your kidneys. But if you're not getting it checked, guys, if you're not doing your MOTs and your GPs, you never know that you're suffering with kidney disease, different internal organ issues, unless you get tested. So it's a scenario where, guys, if you feel that something is not 100%, you're not wasting nobody's time. And I feel sometimes we have that, I don't want to waste nobody's time, I'm just going to carry on and grafting. And I've seen too often in the workplace, where the black workers seem to work themselves to the ground, where they're falling, the legs are dropping off, and they go, I think I've got this, I got that wrong with me and whatever. And we just got this habit of just grafting through the pain barrier, where we can go to the GP, which it's obvious there. So my encouragement is for us to just have this conversation, guys. Speak to the GP. Yomi has just said this, go there. Suggest that, depending what area you are. I'm in Birmingham. I'm assuming there's a few in Birmingham. You know what I mean? And,
there is. Yep. And I say the two things, even if it's not COVID, that I always tell anybody, and relatives, friends, or people, when you go to your GP, say, describe your symptoms, okay? Even if you're not sure what exactly are you feeling, okay? So if they've only got 10 minutes to talk to you, so it's easier, and you know yourself better than anybody else. You know what you've been experiencing. It's that simple. If you're worried about a particular disease, I always say to people and say, look, these are my symptoms and everything in it. Sorry, doctor, this is what I'm worried about. There's nothing wrong with that. They will be able to reassure you, okay, this is not in there. This is because sometimes if you still don't address what's on that patient's mind, and I've seen that many times in my clinic, you've treated somebody for what is wrong with, but you haven't actually addressed what's on their mind, what they're worried about. So they come back another time. So we can all save each other loads of visits to say, these are what I'm experiencing, and doc, this is what I'm worried about.
Yeah, man. No, that's crazy because sometimes we don't want to get taken to the hospital or straight away. We got such fear in our heart. We got so many things in our head that we think, and we need to be honest and straight with the GP there, and 100%. And I think especially coming in talking about different elements of COVID, but definitely. My eyes have been opened totally by this interview in terms of long COVID and its effect into this day. And let's not be ignorant that COVID has disappeared overnight. There's still going to be people getting the COVID throughout this Christmas. When I say Christmas, through this winter period. And Yomi and his team will be effectively working with COVID, long COVID, for years to come. I would suspect there, bro.
Yeah, well, we know from evidence that post-viral symptoms and fatigue, all these syndromes are often after some viral illnesses can persist for long in some people in that. And because I'm a rehabilitation specialist, and I always say to a lot of people, there are many conditions we're never able to cure. So, for instance, some of my patients are amputees.
Yeah,
I'm never going to grow the limb that's gone off.
Wow.
So how do I help this person to manage to live their life without that limb they've lost?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing sometimes in some conditions where, yes, you're experiencing how best can you adapt sometimes to the new year? If there's a treatment that comes along, fantastic. But what if there's no treatment? How do I adjust myself in that? Yes, it might be that I used to be able to run a marathon. Yeah. Now maybe I'm only going to limit myself to 400 meters. Okay?
Yeah.
It's those kind of honest conversation. But whatever we do, you don't want to become a couch potato because of a human body.
Yeah.
And especially, and I emphasize this, ethnic minority, your body needs that movement. The consequence to not moving or not being active is worse. And I think actually worse in ethnic minorities compared to other people if you don't.
Yeah, that's a theme with everybody who's spoken to me. Listen, let's get our activity going, guys. We encourage well-being on the station 100%. We've got a PT as well that comes in and discussions with me, so it's going to be interesting. He's going to look at these videos and really feedback about what's going on and it's the importance of ongoing taking care of yourself, and it's important that we do that. Yomi, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today going through long COVID. I feel like I'm a specialist now. So I'll be going and asking people questions, but it has made me much conscious around the people around me who have had COVID, who might not be 100%, and I will be whispering to them or sending them this video link and saying to them, listen, have a watch this video. If this is affecting you, please go and get it checked out. Please don't suffer alone. Do not suffer alone. It affects us anyway. So Yomi, thanks for your time. Before you go, go.
I was just going to add into that the physical activity bit, because I always try to give this to people. Fine, do within the limits of what you can do, but just don't not do anything. It's that physical activity. It's like if I say, if you've got a headache and I said, oh, take paracetamol. Or you said, oh, I said, don't take anything. I said, but I've still got a headache. I said, well, you took paracetamol yesterday. You know the paracetamol you took yesterday cannot help the headache today. And that's the same way with physical activity. Yeah. So your exercise of yesterday is for yesterday. Yeah. So we need to, I always emphasize it, if there is nothing taken, try and maintain your level of activity is the biggest boost to our body, to retuning it, to making it fine-tune, function optimally.
Functional.
But just don't overdo whatever you do.
Brilliant. Oh, bro, thanks again for that. And I really do appreciate that. And guys, listen, man, this is all knowledge, and it's fantastic having people who look like us, who are us, who's part of us, actually giving us the positive knowledge from the NHS perspective. And guys, it's challenging. Do make comments if you're uncomfortable with anything that's been said. We love to hear from yourself, and we'll get it over. And we'll, if we need to get Romy back on here about this, we'll get him back on here directly. Come if you got any comments about anything you see on this video, because it's here here for everybody in our community, and we want to respond to the information you've been given from other sources, and we're here to challenge that. Yeah, I'm saying that's out there anyway. But listen, Thanks again, Yomi. Appreciate your time and effort. And this is Roger and Affinity Extra, celebrating gospel music of Black origin, but also at the same time just really getting our teeth into some of the issues and some of the health debate with the NHS here. You know what I mean? With long COVID and Dr. Yomi, man. Thanks again, brother.
Hey, this is your bishop. This is your bishop from Rock Solid. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for clicking and subscribing, and also sending these videos to other people as well. We are so hungry to get your support. So remember, check us out on our website, and also check us out on Insta, and wherever you want to find us on Spotify. You can play us all day as well. And just make sure that you are supporting this channel, that we are developing our agenda towards music of Black origin, and that is gospel music with a message. So please walk with us on this journey. Bye now.